Hi everyone, and welcome to the Flute Practice. So it's been many months of performing and playing competitions and all sorts of things, and I thought it's time that we really dig into performance anxiety and some nice tricks and tips on how to overcome it. So let's go check it out. Now, I really want to start off by saying that nothing in this world replaces good old-fashioned preparation. So whatever you do, you want to make sure that you're as prepared as you possibly can be for whatever competition or audition or concert you've got coming up. So don't think that any of this is going to kind of magically fix just not being prepared. Now, as important as it is to start your preparation early, it's important to really start thinking about the performance aspect of your playing. So really imagining that performing situation and learning to deal with the anxiety that comes with it. I think the most important thing to remember with performance anxiety, or stage fright, whatever we want to call it, or just getting nervous for a performance, is that every single one of us goes through it. And sometimes, you have those performances where you feel great and you feel good and, you feel a bit nervous, but you feel fine. And then for, no particular reason, we have those performances where we completely freak out. I don't want to play. I don't want to be in this concert. Why am I here? Do I even play the flute? Who am I? What am I doing here? So I think the important thing to remember with all of this is that it is normal and it is natural. It's also really important to remember that anxiety or nervousness before a performance is very necessary. Now, there's a lot of material you can go look at. We talk about the fight and flight response. What we have is increased pulse. We have sweatiness of the hands or the palms. We have that butterfly feeling in our stomach. We also have racing thoughts. Our body kind of goes into a reactionary mode where it's kind of trying to preserve energy and get you ready for whatever danger is coming your way, which in this case, it's really just a little piece in a concert, school concert or whatever it might be, which is, I always sometimes think, just imagine you were actually going to war. How would you feel then? That's scary stuff. I mean, you could actually die in a war, and in the concert, you're not going to die. I promise you're not going to die. So that's just a little bit of kind of keeping it in perspective, which we're going to talk about a bit later. But for now, to remember that this is a very natural response. Your body is doing a very natural thing. And actually, it's doing this in order to really help you function at your absolute peak. And this means that you're hyper aware. You're able to hear and see and react much faster than you usually would be able to. It also means that we have to learn to control this energy, though, because this energy can make us slightly out of control. And the balance as a musician or as any performing artist or anybody that's got to give speeches or public performances of any kind, the art is to learn to balance all of these aspects and to find a way to utilize that energy and really kind of harness it without it taking kind of control of us. Okay, so a little technique that I personally love to use is one where I visualize the actual performance that I'm going to go into. So what I do, and I do this weeks before a performance, as soon as I can, in fact, I imagine the space that I'm going to go into. And if you can imagine the actual space, if you know how it's going to look, that's great. Otherwise, I kind of try and mix up the spaces a little bit, sort of imagine different spaces or try in my imagination not to get too stuck in the same space. So what I do is I'll imagine myself walking onto the stage, and I imagine myself feeling really calm and feeling kind of, really in control. And I'll imagine maybe the audience or the panel or whatever it might be that I'm playing for. And I kind of just really imagine this kind of very confident, boisterous feeling. I have talked about this technique in my mental rehearsal video, which I will link you all to, because that's just something great to do anyway. But this calm feeling is something that I think really needs to be rehearsed over and over and over again, because it prevents you walking into the room and getting that sort of immediately shocking feeling like, oh my goodness, I'm here now and I'm playing. Oh! We don't want that. We want calm, relaxedness. Something else that's really important is during your practice, when you have difficult passages or you have, bits that are stressing you out or kind of, causing you anxiety, performance anxiety already in your practice, it's really important to undo this process and to really practice in a way that you are practicing quite specifically for your performance, where you are practicing in a feeling of calm, controlled, kind of, confidence in those little tricky passages. I think looking at how we think about ourselves and our practice and our playing during our practice is so absolutely important, because those little loopholes and gaps and kind of weaknesses really come out during a performance. Trust me, I have, I cannot say on how many countless occasions I've had a performance and I could really kick myself afterwards because I realized, because I've been, thinking like this and this and this for the last couple of weeks about that passage or that piece or whatever. So all those little thoughts, recognize them, be aware of them, and try and really stop them. When you get that thought that says, I'm going to mess this up in the concert, I'm going to mess this up in the exam, or this is difficult, or this is challenging, stop those thoughts in their tracks and replace them with, I can do this, I'm going to get this. And if you can't, if you feel like you're lying to yourself by saying those things, then start with I will allow myself to believe that I can do this, and I will allow myself to believe that I will get this. Sometimes, just a little bit of kindness to yourself goes a long way. But really, promise you, the way you think, there's like so many, motivational speakers, and I could go into like a really deep, inspiring philosophical talk right now about that, but I won't. I'll leave that up to you. All I'm going to leave you with is what you think you are, you are. That's unfortunately it's a truth. I'm sorry. One of the things that I've learned to do over the years is really, and now I'm going to sound like a crazy person, so if you didn't think I was crazy before, I'm crazy now. But to really talk to yourself. I mean, there's two elements to this. The one element is kind of creating a little mantra for yourself, or creating kind of a pep talk for yourself. And this is so great to do when you want to replace those negative thoughts, that's I'm not going to get this, or I'm not good enough, or I can't do this. To immediately replace this with your little mantra. And this little mantra can really just be 3 words. I think of the performance or the situation that I'm going into, and I give myself 3 words that describe what I want to kind of achieve in this performance. And sometimes there's, confidence, passion, and, beauty. Or perhaps it is energy, vibrancy, and calmness. So these are just things that I want to either really relay into the performance, or things that I need to remind myself to retain in the performance. So think of 3 words, whatever they might be, and repeat these to yourself, as consistently and as often as you need to in the days coming up to your performance. And especially, they are such a wonderful way to calm yourself down when you are feeling that like mild freak out moment, which we all get, it happens. The next thing to think about in terms of this talking to yourself is that inner critic. Now, we all know him, kind of sits over here somewhere on your shoulder, and he's like, oh, you played a wrong note, you're so bad, what is the matter with you, why did you play a wrong note there, and he sits there, and okay, that he's, what I just described seems like a pretty nasty fellow, and yes, he is pretty nasty right there. But he's also our best friend, because he's the little guy that in our practice session sits there and says, hey, why'd you play an F sharp? And excuse you, but your sound wasn't great there, or intonation. He's the little guy that tells us when we're not doing things correctly in our practice, and he is our best friend. But he can be our worst enemy, because he gets, especially in the performance, he gets very nasty sometimes. And truth be told, he doesn't belong in your performance. He doesn't. He's kind of got to go and take a back seat and, got to just watch and enjoy, and he will come back in the practice session or after the concert, maybe a little bit if something needs to be kind of analyzed or whatever it is, but he doesn't belong in your performance. And we need to train ourselves not to allow that little critical voice to take over. So what we really need to do is we need to talk to ourselves, and we need to say to this little guy, listen, you are my best friend in practice, and you're very helpful, but you need to shut up in my performance or in my concert or whatever it is. You just need to zip it. Okay, yeah, I told you think I'm crazy a little bit, yeah, and I am a bit crazy, so that's fine. We've kind of covered that in earlier videos anyway. The point is that we need to replace those thoughts with thoughts, a sort of sense of curiosity, or a certain sense of sort of really living in the moment. So perhaps you make a mistake, and rather than thinking, oh no, I made a mistake, I've ruined this whole performance, you've got to think, oh, okay, that was colorful, that was interesting, that was something new. And then you have to do one of the most important things you will ever do, and that is put it behind you, let it go, put it away. In a performance, It's one time only, and that's all you get. And you know what? Things happen. And I think this is such an important thing for us to remember. In a performance, there is no such thing as a perfect performance. Mark my word, there is no such thing as a perfect performance. It doesn't exist. And I think even when we do play note perfect and we maybe don't have any intonation problems, very often what's lacking is a certain sense of energy and fire and flair, because we're so kind of careful and trying to be so correct. I mean, I spent a year in Vienna watching the most incredible musicians and artists in the world. I mean, really some of the greatest names. And I can truly say that most of them made some kind of little slips or mistakes in their concerts. And we listen to their recordings and their CDs and we think, but they're so amazing and they never make mistakes. And there are some that, can play more note perfectly than others. But hands down, I can count on one hand perhaps how many really played without a mistake. And I saw some pretty major memory slips and fluffs and muddle ups. But at the end of the day, that certainly did not detract from their performance. Hey, the big guys even make mistakes. So what are you stressing about? Okay, so the last thing I really want to talk to you about is perspective. And I think this is one of the biggest and most important things when it comes to performances. You're not going into war. You're not going into a situation where you could, your life is in danger, or where your family or your loved one's life is in danger. All of those things are not actually happening. And sometimes it feels like that. Sometimes it feels like this huge, really important deal, this, crazy time. But actually the truth is it's not. It's just one concert or one performance or one audition. The other really important aspect of that is that it is only one, and there will be hundreds more and many, many others. And there is no single performance in the whole wide world that is so important that it, could make or break your career or who you are as a person or anything really. Maybe you're auditioning for college and, there's that audition that college you really want to get into, or that school you really want to get into. And it feels like this is it, everything in the whole wide world is resting on this one audition. But I promise you it's not. It really is not. And I think when we start to over-focus on a performance or a concert, audition, whatever, in that way, when we start to make it our be-all and end-all, we're in very, very big trouble. Because we are learning, growing beings, and here I go once again, being very kind of meta and all that today. But we are learning, growing, changing beings, and every day is just another step along the way. And every concert and every performance, we learn something. And, sometimes you have that amazing concert where you're like, wow, that was absolutely incredible. I just, absolutely, there was that one little spot on page 3, but other than that, it was great. Man, those concerts happen. And sometimes we do even get that concert that is near perfection. It happens, but that is not your teacher. That is not your big lesson in life. The lessons in life, the real teachers are the concerts where things go a little bit pear-shaped. So really, perspective time. You're not going to die. You're not going to war. This is just another little stepping stone on your path to being the best player you can be. So enjoy it.